So what if I told you that the way that you're paying your debt off right now is actually keeping you stuck longer? Many people don't realize this and they think that they're actually making progress on paying off their debt, but behind the scenes, the interest is quietly working against them. And the worst part of it all is that you could be doing everything right and you're still losing years off of your financial life. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly where this goes wrong and how you can fix it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Smart Money Moves with Rod Loyola. So glad that you're here with me today. And of course, today we're going to be talking about paying off debt. Now, the reality is that Canadians as a whole were between 800 and 820 billion dollars in debt, and that's not including mortgages. Yeah, you heard me right. Billion. Now, if you actually include mortgages into that, then we're closer to 3.1 to 3.2 trillion dollars in debt. That is extremely high. But guess what? If you think you're the only one, well, you're not alone. That just goes, those numbers just go to show you that this is a serious problem for a lot of people here in Canada. So, of course, I'm just reading off my notes here on the side, so bear with me. So, today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be identifying that debt itself is not the enemy. What really is the problem is mismanaged debt, which is the real problem. And the reason for this is because we need to think about debt as a tool, not necessarily as a trap. You can use it in good ways and you could use it in bad ways. And so today, what we'll be learning and focusing on is the difference between good and bad debt, why debt spirals out of control, how to assess your current situation, and then strategies to eliminate debt efficiently, and then how to stay debt-free long-term. So the issue here is taking control of the debt, which is one of the most empowering financial decisions that any person can make. That's where I want to get you today. So stick around for the entire video. So let's first off start by defining debt. So debt obviously is borrowing money that must be repaid with interest. Now, I know that there's a lot of people out there that you don't even want to go into debt. But let me tell you, I remember being in university. I was I don't know, 18, 19 years old, 20 years old. And I remember at the universities, banks having tables set up inside of, what was it called again? Hub Mall, right? I almost forgot the name. I used to hang out there so often. Anyways, banks would have tables set up, and I'm pretty sure that they had them set up in the Students' Union building as well. But banks would have these tables set up where they would have people offering students credit cards. Now, I'm not even going to go into it too much in detail, but you're thinking to yourself, okay, the majority of those students, have student loans already. They're already borrowing money in order to so that they can make the investment to go to school. Now, I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but yes, it's an investment, right? But here, on top of the fact that they're already getting student loans in order to go to university or whatever post-secondary educational institution they were going to, you're also getting banks offering them credit cards. And of course, they tell them that it's to build their credit. But reality is that, in my personal opinion, you shouldn't get a credit card until you're actually working so you can actually pay that money off. What good does a credit card do you if you can't pay it off at the end of the month? Now, granted, there are some people who have part-time jobs and some people who even have full-time jobs and they're going to school full-time, etc. I get it, right? But this is how debt can be a trap. And the reality is that if you don't have a job and you have no way of paying your credit card off at the end of the month, well, then you can be sure that this is a bad strategy and you're going to end up going into a lot of debt. But getting question, if you and your partner stopped working today, would you actually know how financially secure your family is? Well, most dual income families are earning well, saving something, investing a little, but still aren't completely sure where they stand. That's exactly why I created the Financial Blind Spot Scorecard, a simple 3-minute assessment that helps you identify hidden gaps in your financial plan. It gives you clarity on your financial standing, highlights potential blind spots, and helps bring structure and peace of mind to your financial future. If this sounds great to you, get the assessment done. The link is in the show notes below. Again, it takes 3 minutes to get it done. If you're watching this on your TV, scan the QR code. As I said before, click on the link in the description below. But getting back to it, so there is good debt and there's bad debt. So there's debt that actually helps you build long-term wealth and opportunities. And so examples of that, like I just finished saying, are educational loans, so student loans to go to post-secondary, but then also mortgages. And then you can also have business loans. And sometimes you can even have investment loans. And it's one of the strategies that maybe I'll go into in a future video, but you can actually be borrowing money and investing it. You have to do this in a non-registered fund though. And you can actually benefit from this. If you're borrowing at a lower interest rate and you are, and you're investing and growing your money, the compound growth that you're growing is at a higher interest rate, well, then it's a no-brainer, right? But you got to be really careful when it comes to this. And you have to keep very good track of how much you're borrowing, at what rate, and all this, because you have to be able to clear that with the CRA at the end of the year. But you can actually there's a tax benefit to it. But like I said, I'll go into that in another video. I'll go deeper into that strategy in the near future. So again, good examples of good debt are educational loans, mortgages, business loans, and then again, some investment loans. So for example, the education loan that you're going to get, it's really important that you be able to pay that off as soon as you can once you get out of university. But I know people, like I was just sitting with a client probably about a month ago now, and he was telling me that it took him 20 years to pay off of his student loan. 20 years. And so I want you to be really careful with any debt that you take on, even though it's a good investment, because you're borrowing because you're going to get an education and then eventually get a really good job. I mean, you can be doing everything right, but then things can still go wrong. So I'll give you my own example. When I graduated from university, it was 1999. And yes, I really am that old. The gray hairs are in my beard are starting to show. Before, when they weren't as gray, people thought I was a lot younger. But anyways, I graduated in 1999. It was a really difficult time. It was really difficult to find a job. And I remember going through that process, and looking for a job was a full-time job, right? You couldn't let yourself, just apply for a few jobs here and there. No, you was like constantly on the grind, hustling in order to find a job. I even worked at a Please Mom for a few months because I was just looking for a job anywhere I could get it. But then finally I decided to start my own business. And let me tell you, that's a topic for another video. But I want to strongly suggest to many of you who could be watching this video that instead of looking for a job, you could create your own job and just hustle your way to creating wealth on your own. And even though you may have a university degree or whatever the case may be, there's also that other option. And if that's something that interests you more of, and you want me to talk more about that, or what my own experience was in that, then please just drop a comment down below. Now, we went over the good debt. So the characteristics of good debt are the fact that it's at a lower interest rate. There's the potential for long-term benefit. And of course, there's structured repayment. Now, bad debt is debt that loses value quickly and carries high interest. So example of this are credit cards, payday loans, consumer financing, retail installment plans. So let me tell you this, consumer financing and retail installment plans are something that have become more popular lately. I remember going to Best Buy and them offering this. I've gone to places like Sofaland, and yeah, they're just like, okay, well, we'll loan you the money so that you can buy this thing, and you just buy it over time. Now, one of the good things about that is that if you can get a zero interest loan, then this could potentially be, but you have to know that you're going to be able to pay it off between the span of that low of no interest, right? Because they're not charging you interest, but the minute that you go over that the date of when, let's say it was 6 months no interest, you go over that 6 months interest, and then they hit you, right? So if you know you can pay it off before the deadline, and so you can truly make it a zero interest loan, it may be beneficial. I recommend it to some people if it's their only recourse, but of course it's best just to pay cash on everything. But I know the realities out there that some people, they don't have the money to be able to do that. Okay, so those were credit cards, payday loans, consumer financing, and retail installment plans. Okay, why are these bad? Well, they're higher interest, right? They're higher interest rates, and there's no long-term financial benefit to it. So it's really easy to accumulate more and more debt with time by using these credit vehicles. So what are the key lessons? The issue is not having debt, because sometimes debt can be a good thing. The issue is what the debt is financing, okay? And so when debt becomes a really big problem, well, it's the main cause of debt problems is the lack of financial awareness. Now, you've seen me do, or you may have watched the video on budgeting. And that's something that I really, if you haven't watched that video yet, I want you to go back and watch that one. The thumbnail says, "Where did it go?" Right? And the reason I named it like that is because a lot of the times, people don't know where their money is going. The money comes into their bank account, and the money just leaves their bank account. And yeah, they know that they have certain things that they have to pay, but the money's in and the money's out, and you don't actually know where it's all going. So people don't fully understand interest or repayment terms. And that's part of the problem, is that they start taking on debt, but they don't know what the terms are and how much interest they're actually being charged on certain things. And when you don't include that into your budgeting, well, you start getting lost very quickly. Now, the second cause of debt problems is lifestyle inflation. This is where your income increases and then your spending increases even faster. And that happens to a lot of people, and I get it because I've been there. You start making more money, and so you automatically assume, well, I'm making more money, so I can spend more. And you go and you put more things on the credit card, but then the end of the month comes and you realize, oh, I don't have enough to pay the credit card off, right? Or there's so many examples. Like, for example, people, they'll get more income and they'll be like, okay, let's take that family trip that we've always wanted to take. And they end up putting the entire thing, like the flight, the accommodation while they're on the trip, thinking, yeah, we'll just pay everything back off once we get back. But then once they get back, there's other life emergencies that happen and end up prohibiting them, stopping them from paying that trip back, right? And so often I'll tell people, look, if you want to take a trip, I get it. You may want to pay some of it on the credit card, but don't put everything on the credit card. And like, I'm just trying to be realistic. Like, yeah, theoretically, you don't want to put anything on the credit card. You want to be able to pay for the entire trip cash. But I know that that's not possible for some people. And so if anything, just really get a good grip on what you're actually putting on the credit card, making sure that you're able to pay that off before the end of the month so that you don't incur that much debt and then being charged interest on top of that. So number three is easy access to credit. So as I was saying in the beginning, I remember being, 20 years old and seeing banks at the University of Alberta tabling, and then they were giving credit cards away. Now, luckily, my parents taught me that that was a bad idea. One of the main, like I remember being, I don't know, maybe I was like 8 years old. And my parents, I think they had something like three credit cards. But I remember when they finally, they made a decision that they were just going to pay off those credit cards. But I remember, I have this vivid memory in my mind of my mom cutting these credit cards in half and then in quarters, and being like, and her telling me credit cards are bad. I'll never forget that, because of course they must have fallen into the trap, and so they were putting things on the credit card. And that's the thing, is that a lot of people tend to get a credit card and then they actually think that credit cards are like cash. And let me tell you, there's a lot of newcomers to Canada, more newer Canadians, that they are having this problem because, I don't know, maybe they didn't have access to credit depending on where they came from. But I'm finding more and more that we have new Canadians that are coming here. They're getting a credit card. They think it's like cash, and then they just go and use the credit card on everything, and then not realizing, I have to make sure I pay this thing off at the end of the month, right? So easy access to credit cards makes spending really painless, right? So you go and you just spend. Now, the other one is unexpected emergencies. And I've been there. Unexpected emergency. I remember when I was running my business, one of my very first businesses when I was really young out the gate in university. So I don't know, I was like 22, 23 years old. And I started a lawn maintenance and landscaping business. And so I remember whenever there was an issue, like let's say the trailer would get a flat and we had to buy a new tire, or whatever, like the machines are constantly breaking down, like lawnmowers and rototillers and a number of things that need to get fixed, or like power rakes and aerators. Like these are all machines. So you do your best to maintain them as best as you can, but then there's always going to be things that have to be fixed on them because there's just the wear and tear of using them each and every day. So regardless, there was the only thing that I could do, is because we were waiting for payments from clients and other businesses, because we were doing both. We were doing direct to client, and then of course to other businesses. We would have some pretty sizable contracts, but they wouldn't pay until the end of the month. And then some contracts, there would be a 60 or even 90-day stipulation, which means you're not getting paid for another 2 to 3 months. And so like that, there was times when I'd have to put emergencies on the credit card. And then of course there's lots of families that do the same, is that whenever there's an emergency that comes up, let's say the car needs to be fixed, well, there's only one option, and that's to put it on a credit card. So that's unexpected emergencies is another reason and a main cause for debt problems. But perhaps one of the biggest ones is the emotional spending. Now, I know that people get stressed. There's people who are bored, or there's social pressure to keep up with your neighbors, or whatever the case may be. You want to have nice things, but people tend to spend on a credit card just because they want to go out and spend money, and because it makes them feel good. They want to feel like they're like they can afford all the other things that they see other people affording. But let me tell you, let's go back to the beginning. $800 to $820 billion in debt. That's where Canadians are right now. And so you may think that you're keeping up with your next door neighbors or family members or extended family members or whatever the case may be. But the reality is that more and more people are in debt. And so you have lots of people that like to buy nice fancy toys, like and I'm guilty of that too. But the motorcycle I have ended up costing me $6,500 because I bought it used. So it wasn't like one of these, $40,000 Harley motorcycles out there, right? But regardless of the fact, what I'm trying to get at is that people will spend out of stress and boredom and dealing with past traumas or things that have happened to them in their life, and that this is one of the reasons that they do so. And like a quick little story I can tell you is that I remember, so obviously I've gained a lot of weight in the last couple of years since getting remarried to Tamara, right? Because she has a sweet tooth like you wouldn't believe. And of course, if she's eating sweet, then I want to eat sweet too, right? So, but regardless of the fact that before I got remarried, there was a time when I lost a lot of weight. I got down to about, I think it was 168 pounds. But I remember vividly during that period, because before that, I had the habit of eating out of boredom sometimes, right? Still trying to get the control of that. Happy to say that, I'm getting back to the gym. But regardless of the fact, I remember during that time, like I was single, I was going to the gym, I was going to yoga, and then I was trying really hard to be out of the house because I didn't want to be in the house eating. And I was really conscious about not eating out because I was trying to eat healthy. And so one of the things that I would do I would go shopping. And so I get it. I get the emotional spending thing. You're out, you're shopping, you're looking at stuff, and you're like, oh wow, this is really nice. And even though you're buying things that are on sale, you put them on the credit card instead of paying them cash, and then you end up getting further and further into debt. So remember, if you did watch the budgeting video, I suggested to people that one of the best ways to deal with that is that you have a certain amount allotted for clothing during your month. And so you can either spend all of that in like one lump sum on one item of clothing, or you divide it up amongst a bunch of other things that you can find on sale. But when you hit that amount and that's it. Pay cash for clothes and things like that. Okay? Try not to put them on the credit card unless you have like a cashback credit card that is actually going to give you points, but then make sure to pay it off before the end of the month. Okay, so what are some of the key insights here? So debt problems rarely happen overnight. This is something that just kind of grows and grows like a snowball. And you're putting a little bit here on the credit card, a little bit here, a little bit here. You don't even realize it before you've accumulated about $1,000 worth of debt. Okay, so the important thing that I need to share with you is, of course, that debt becomes dangerous when interest compounds faster than the payments. Okay, so yeah, you're not paying before the end of the month, then you get charged interest, and then then you put more on them. And so the minimum payment that you're paying becomes your habit. You start paying the minimum payment instead of paying the whole thing off. And so new debt replaces old debt. And therein goes the cycle and the trap, and then what you have to be really careful of. Okay? Now, I know that if you're in a tough situation and you're kind of living off of your credit card, well, then you need to start asking yourself some serious questions about, okay, well, maybe you need to get a side hustle or another part-time job. And I get it. Like, there's some people who are in situations where they are, they already have a full-time job and a part-time job, and they're still not making ends meet. If this is your scenario, I want you to reach out to me, okay? Because my goal is to help people get on a path where they can actually, let me put it this way. If you can't curb your spending, okay, if you can't curb your spending, then the only other option you have is to increase your income shovel. And especially if you're in a lot of debt, you have to increase your income shovel. And there's certain ways that you can do that by either getting a second job or starting your own business, if this is something that you want to do, I want you to reach out to me. Please reach out to me so that I can help you. I can coach you through, because when you decide to start a new business, there's a lot of things that you have to learn. The learning curve is rather steep, but once you get there, you're golden. And so that's what I help people do, aside from just helping them financially, is I also coach people through starting their own business, all the things that they need to do. And then what are the things that they need to be asking themselves? Because sometimes you don't even know what you should be asking yourself when you're starting a business, okay? Anyways, let's get back into this. So assessing your current debt. So the first step towards control, obviously, is clarity. So you can't fix what you can't clearly see. So what I need you to do, what I recommend that you do, is that you list all of your debts. List them all. And the best thing to do, and I'm going to provide a Google sheet that you can just get a copy of it, copy it, download it. I'll put the link in the show notes below. I want you to go there, make yourself a copy of it, and then start putting all your debts in there. So you put your credit cards, your line of credit, if you still have student loans, any personal loans that you may have, and then your car loan, okay? Now, once you have everything listed in there, there's 3 important numbers that you need to put in there, okay? Now, so there's columns already built in the Google Sheet that I'm going to give you to download. But what those are the total balance, the interest rate that you're being charged, and then the minimum payment to make sure that it doesn't impact in a negative way your actual credit score, okay? So those are the 3 numbers. So now next, what we're going to do is we're going to calculate your total debt. So this number can feel super uncomfortable. I get it. But awareness is the starting point for your progress. Important mindset to have is that this exercise isn't about shaming you, okay? This isn't about feeling ashamed. I get it, you may feel ashamed, but that's not what the point is here, okay? I want you to feel like you're empowering yourself to take control of this situation and get you back on course where you have, if you do have debt, it's in a controlled way, and that you're doing it in a very systematized way that'll benefit you, rather than being in a situation where you're completely out of control with your debt. Now, again, like I mentioned, I'm going to provide a Google Sheet. The link is down below. Please take advantage of that Google Sheet because the calculations are already done inside. So you just need to put the credit card, whatever the credit card is, put the name, and then, like I said, those 3 numbers, which of course are the total amount of debt that you have, then the interest rate, and then what the minimum payment is. Okay, so depending on the financial coach or advisor that you come across, they're gonna suggest 2 ways of repaying debt. Now, I have my own preference. And just the other day I watched a financial advisor talking about the debt snowball. Okay, and I want to go through. So there's the debt snowball, and then there's the avalanche. Okay, but I'm going to get into both of them. Okay, so the strategy number 1, the debt snowball. Here, the focus is paying off the smallest balance first. Now, why do they say this? Well, because once you paid off the smallest amount, then you feel like, okay, I've gone from whatever it is, like from five pieces of debt down to 4. Okay, so you pay the minimum on all the debts, and then you attack the smallest one as aggressively as you possibly can. So I'll give you an example that's fresh out of my mind. I had a client a couple of months ago, and yeah, they had about 6 or 7 pieces of debt, and one of them was a Canadian Tire card, which they only owed $2,000 on. Which I say only because it was only $2,000 compared to the other debt that they had, and they decided that they were going to use the snowball method, even though that's not my choice. But I leave it up to clients. I give them options. They're the ones that make the decisions. But they felt like, okay, if we could just get rid of that Canadian Tire card, then we'll be happy. And that's great. If you're happy, you're good. If it's giving you incentive to keep going, if it's motivating you to keep paying off debt, then all power to you. If this is the approach that you want to use, great. It's a quick psychological win for you, and it helps build momentum. But the one that I prefer most is the debt avalanche, which is when you're paying the one that has the highest interest first. So you pay minimum payment on everything else, and then you attack the one with the highest interest debt. Well, why do I suggest this one? Well, because this one helps you save more money on the interest payments in the long run. So you could imagine if you have a credit card that's charging you 19.5%, and then you have a line of credit which is at 6, and then a car loan which is at 7.5. Well, those two other ones are pretty low, right, compared to the credit card. And let's say you owe, I don't know, let's say you owe $15,000 on a credit card and it's at 19%. Boy, man, that's just killing you really slowly. So because that one has the highest interest rate, I recommend getting rid of that one first, okay? And so it helps you save money in the long run. Again, the snowball method is much more emotional motivation, whereas the avalanche is mathematical efficiency in my book, which is why I choose to go with that one. But whatever it is that you choose, stick to it and be consistent, okay? Now, whenever possible, increase your payments, okay? So let's say you get a nice chunk of change with a tax refund, or you get a bonus, or you find yourself getting an extra piece of income from somewhere. Put it on that debt. Get rid of that high interest debt as quickly as possible, okay? So now let's talk about reducing. And a lot of the times people don't think about this, what I'm going to talk about now, and because they just don't know that they have it available to them. But several banks and other lending institutions, what they will do is that you can transfer your debt over to them. Let's say you to get a new credit card, okay? And especially ones that have cash back. It may not be with cash back, but there are credit card options out there that if you transfer debt from one place to another, they will even give you interest-free payments or very low interest payments for a period of up to 1 year. Some are 3 months, some are 6 months, but some can be for a whole entire year. And so I always recommend to my clients, if they can find a way to transfer the balance from one credit card to another, so moving from high interest rate credit card to a lower rate option, this is always best. Because then that way, let's say you have $10,000 in debt and you can move 5,000 of it to another credit card, or even 8,000 to another credit card where they're not going to be charging you very high interest. Well, then whatever is left on that initial credit card, which is charging you 19% interest, well, you can pay that off quickly, right? And then you can move to the next highest interest rate and pay that off as quickly as you possibly can. In the meanwhile, you've got this new credit card that has a really super low interest rate for a period of an entire year, right? Now, of course, after that year is over, then the interest rate is going to shoot back up, okay? So you can choose to tackle that like wherever you feel is the best time to tackle that. But getting rid of all that debt, this is like one of the things that you'll be able to, that will help you so much by transferring the balance of it, okay? So a lot of the times they have these promotional balance transfer cards. I highly recommend, if you don't have a way of checking, there's a website called Credit Karma. I highly recommend it because, and this is a way for you to check your own credit score without it impacting your credit score. So you can sign up for it, Credit Karma, If you haven't done this before, please do it. Go check it out. And then Credit Karma itself will suggest these lower promotional balance transfer cards for you, right? Or they'll tell you, you know what, we see that you have such and such a debt. We recommend that you move to this other credit card over here, because so they make all the recommendations for you. You don't even have to shop around that much. I mean, still shop around. You can go to all the different banks, go to Service Credit Union, go to ATB, go to all the places that you can possibly find, and see if they're offering any of these promotions on balance transfer cards, and move your debt to a lower interest rate. Right? So of course, obviously, lower interest rate, it's a simpler payments. But the other thing that you can do is you can actually, well, there's debt consolidation. I don't want to forget debt consolidation. It's not one of my favorite ones, because depending on where you go and who you're having it done for you can actually, and so for people who are unsure about what this is basically you're taking all your debt and you're consolidating it all into one single lower interest rate loan. Okay? There's lots of companies that are doing that right now that you can find, but just really be careful on what the actual terms are. That's the only thing I'm going to tell you. You have to be really careful on what those terms are. And then the other thing is how it's going to impact your credit score. So be aware of that before you make any final decisions on consolidating debt. Now, maybe that's your only choice and it's better than going bankrupt, obviously, because don't forget that going bankrupt, if I'm not mistaken, if things haven't changed, it impacts your credit score for 7 years. Okay, so you do not want to go bankrupt. But like I said, some of these debt consolidation companies, when you do them, they can also impact your credit score for a significant amount of time. It won't be as long as going bankrupt, but it does impact your credit score. So it's not one of my highly recommended things that I suggest to clients. That's why I always say, try to find a way to move things over to a lower balance card, transfer the debt. That's one of the best things. But then of course, the other thing that you can do, and to be honest, this is what the debt consolidators do. They're going to call your credit card company or wherever it is that you have a loan, and they're going to try to negotiate reduced interest rate or doing some kind of repayment structuring. So and then lower the amount that you actually owe. And this you can do on your own. Okay, you're going to have to do a little bit more research into it, or consult like someone with me who can advise you on it. But this is something that you can actually do on your own, okay? So key lesson here, ignoring debt just makes it worse, really. So engaging with creditors often creates solutions. So I wanna highly recommend that you reach out. If you're going through a tough time, reach out to your creditor, credit card company, whatever it is. Tell them what you're going through and see if you can negotiate something to reduce the interest rate specifically. But there's more than just that. There's other ways, like figuring out another debt repayment plan or something to that effect. So now the next thing I want to talk about is actually staying out of debt long term. Okay. So of course, debt freedom actually requires certain behaviors. Now, number one, the thing that I always recommend to clients is that you want to build an emergency fund. Okay, this way, if there is an emergency, you don't have to put it on a credit card. Now, an emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. So let's say your monthly expenses are $5,000 a month, 3 months, $15,000, 6 months, $30,000. You have that money tucked away in case of an emergency. That way, if the car does break down or the car needs some work on it, you can go into the emergency fund to grab that rather than putting it on your credit card. Okay? Now, the reason why we would do this, of course, is so that we don't have to use our credit card in emergencies. And at the same time, we're following a structured budget. Okay. Now, please, if you haven't and you're watching this video, go and watch the other one on budgeting. Please, it will help you out immensely. So, quick question: if you and your partner stopped working today, would you actually know how financially secure your family is? Well, most dual income families are earning well, saving something, investing a little, but still aren't completely sure where they stand. That's exactly why I created the Financial Blindspot Scorecard, a simple 3-minute assessment that helps you identify hidden gaps in your financial plan. It gives you clarity on your financial standing, highlights potential blind spots, and helps bring structure and peace of mind to your financial future. If this sounds great to you, get the assessment done. The link is in the show notes below. Again, it takes 3 minutes to get it done. If you're watching this on your TV, scan the QR code. As I said before, click on the link in the description below. So when you have a budget, it ensures spending stays intentional and then that debt doesn't creep back in. So you're controlling your lifestyle. And then, of course, when income rises, you increase in savings and you increase on investing, all the while avoiding increasing any unnecessary expenses. So you can use credit strategically, and you should use it for convenience and short-term liquidity, but not as a lifestyle expansion. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people use it for. So other common debt mistakes. So we already talked about ignoring the problem. Now, debt rarely disappears on its own. I've never heard of debt disappearing on its own. You have to be intentional when you're attacking debt. So the earlier you do this, the more problems you're going to be able to avoid. Now, a lot of people get stuck in paying only the minimum payments. I'm not too sure where this comes from. And because you have to understand that when you're paying the minimum payment, the majority of that is just going to the interest that is being charged. So you're not actually bringing down your debt. You're just paying the interest on that particular month or for that particular period. So you're really not putting a dent into the amount that you actually owe. Okay? Now, balances decline very slowly. And so taking on new debt while repaying old debt is another big one. And I get it, especially if you're in a situation where you are not 100% secure or your income is not secure, you're going to end up taking on new debt. But this is why I'm telling you, if this is your situation, I need you to come and talk to me so we can talk about increasing your income shovel and figuring out a plan. I want to give you a prime example. So I'm actually coaching a lady who I don't want to go into too much detail, but she's in a situation where she's trying to pay back debt. And so one of the things that she likes to do is to tutor people, and specifically tutor new Canadians that are trying to learn English. And so I said to her, well, if this is something that you love to do already, like charge a reasonable amount and then take on a number of students, and then whatever, so let's say, she charges $20. I don't know how much she's going to charge. I didn't tell her how much to charge. I told her to actually go out there and see what other tutors are charging. But let's assume that it was $20 for every tutoring session, and you're going to tutor people once a week. Okay, so for each person, you're already up at $80, right? Now, let's assume that you get 10 clients. You got 10 people that you're tutoring at $80 for the entire month. That's $800, man. So that $800 you can put all on the debt, is what I told her. Like, obviously I wasn't talking about numbers at that instance, but I'm using that as an example right now. But I was basically telling her that the amount that you make on your tutoring, you can put all to pay down your debt, right? So this is something that if you're in a situation like this and you're looking for that's what I'm here for, to be a sounding board for you. I ask you what your passion is, what do you like doing, and I try to figure out a way that you can use that passion or whatever it is that you enjoy doing and turn it into something that's actually going to bring you some income. Okay, so let's get back to the common debt mistakes here. So, taking on new debt while repaying old debt, we talked about that. Now, consolidating debt without your changing your behavior. My goodness. Debt consolidation only works if your spending habits change, because it makes absolutely no sense to consolidate all your debt. Then you end up getting another credit card down the road, and then you end up racking up another $10,000 worth of debt. So you have to be really careful on this one, please. Once you decide to consolidate debt, remember that this can impact has the potential of impacting your credit score. So what we're trying to do is get you to a point where you're paying off all your debt and that you're at least maintaining the credit score that you have, okay? Now, the credit score, if I'm not mistaken, is dependent on two factors. Obviously, how much debt you have, and then also if you're paying back everything on time. So you're staying on top of all your debt repayment. And for that, you just have to pay the minimum, okay? But again, depending on how much debt you have and how much your debt you're carrying, it will also impact your credit score, okay? So when we talk about these spending habits, you have to get away from emotional decision making. So one of the things that I tell all my clients and what I practice myself is that I leave my credit cards at home. Why? Well, because if I'm out with Tamara and we're shopping, I want to be able to pay cash so I pay with my debit card. Now, if you go back to the budgeting video, there's the whole thing of like the 50-30-20 rule. If you don't know what that is, please go watch the other video on budgeting. But that 30% that you have for spending on your wants, that's the account that I have a debit card for. And that's what I take out with me when we go shopping. But I have an understanding of how much I'm going to be spending on clothes, how much I'm spending on eating out, all that kind of stuff. And so it's very intentional when I actually pull that debit card out and I'm paying cash. I'm not putting it on credit unless, Tamara has a card that is cash back. So we use that one for a whole bunch of stuff, right? But my credit card is not a cashback credit card. And so I only use it in very particular circumstances. Now, as I was saying, when we're out, I leave the credit cards at home. So that way, if I do want to buy something that I think will, number one, would be an investment into my business, or somehow I'm going to need something for whatever reason, then that way I actually have to come back home, have to be really, really convinced that I'm going to go back and use my credit card for that particular purchase, right? The other thing that's really difficult, and I found myself in this trap like many years ago, probably 10 years ago. A friend of mine introduced me to Amazon. Oh my gosh. And I know probably a lot of you people out there are going through the same things. It's so easy to purchase things on Amazon. Oh, emotional decision making. Please don't do this. Amazon can be our friends because of convenience, but it can also be a detriment if you're not controlling your behavior. Okay? Anyways, buying to relieve stress creates financial stress later. Be aware of this. So keep that out of your mind. Try to come up with other hobbies, other things to do, whatever it is that you need to do in order to stop perusing through Amazon on things that you really perhaps don't really need, but you're trying to convince yourself that you need, and it's actually a want. Again, go back and watch the budgeting video. When you set yourself a certain limit for the wants and you know what that limit is, then yeah, okay, if you want to buy something on Amazon, do it, but as long as it's within the limit, okay? Don't go crazy. Now, again, I want to mention the Google Sheet that I'm going to share with all of you down below. There'll be a shortened link to it. And then, like I said, when you go there, what you want to do is you want to make a copy of it, and then you can use that in your own Google Sheets to start putting in the amounts that you owe on all the different debt that you have, and then we can go from there. So to recap, we want to make sure that debt becomes manageable when you begin to understand it, you face it honestly, and you start building a structured plan. And that's what the Google Sheet is going to help you do. It's going to help you build a structured plan to pay back that debt. Now, financial freedom from debt requires awareness, discipline, and consistency. Now, awareness, we all kind of have in the back of our head the amounts that we owe. Okay, I get it. But then the discipline and the consistency are what really matter here. But once you get it, once you start paying things off and you pay off that high interest credit card, get rid of that, and then you can move on to the other debt that you have, well, it just makes you feel a whole lot lighter. It's like a weight off of your chest that, because I've been there. I've been in a situation where I've been in debt, and I can tell you that it's just, it takes so much off of you in a stress wise. And so I want to encourage you all to please get on top of this. Get on top of this, get disciplined, get consistent. Because I understand that many people are feeling trapped by the debt. And again, I'll remind you, you are not the only one. If you're in this experience right now, you are not the only one. Remember, $800 to $820 billion in debt. That's where Canadians are, not including mortgage payments. So the important thing here, just take that first step. Take that first step by downloading the Google Sheet. Start putting the information in there. And if that's not enough for you, please book a meeting with me. I don't charge people to come and sit down with me and help them come up with options for debt repayment. Okay? And so I've done this for a number of clients already, and I don't charge them one red cent to come and see me for this. It's really, like, honest, I'm passionate about helping people. As I say in all my videos, I'm super passionate about helping people. And if I can help you get out of debt by presenting options and making recommendations, I'm happy to do so. And I'm not going to charge you one red cent to do so. Okay? I will make suggestions on things that you could potentially do in order to move forward, but I'm not going to charge you any money. So if you download the Google Sheet and you start putting information in there, but you're not exactly sure how it's all going, then please reach out to me, info@rodloyola.ca. I'll put all that information in the show notes below. Please take advantage of it. So the first step, just download that Google Sheet, go from there. And then from there, this is a path towards your freedom from debt. Okay? So please take advantage of it. And I hope that very soon you can be out of that debt, and that you can be in a situation now where you're actually saving money and investing it for your future, so that you can leave a legacy for your children and all of your loved ones that are going to come after you. Thank you for taking the time that you have into watching this video. And please, if you know of other people that would benefit from this information, please share the video with them. Okay? I didn't say it at the beginning, but I'll say it now. If you want more information like this, then please subscribe to the channel. This information that I'm sharing is all for your benefit, okay? For me, like, obviously some people may sign up to be a client with me, but that's not my intention with this. It really is to educate you as much, or at least pass on as much education that I have to you, so that it can benefit you and your family. So please subscribe to the channel, and then also share the video with those that you love if you think that they can benefit from it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll see you in the next video.